Hey everybody, it's Garrison, bringing you deck tech from the deck that I played on Friday night at F&M. So, contrary to popular belief, I do love control, especially a hard control deck. And I did not have a lot of time this week to think about or make up my own deck list, so we're using Jim Davis's deck list from the SCG Classic in Cleveland on Force 7. So, It I did make two changes, one to the main board and one to the sideboard. So I do like having two Kaya. Kaya's really good, especially in the creature heavy meta that we have at our store. Some other places it might not be quite as good, and one might be the right call. But all I did was cut one Chemister's Insight to give me the second Kaya, and then in the sideboard. I actually cut one Thief of Sanity and added one Chromium. I do know that there is another Esper control, at least one or two control lists floating around that will show up every once in a while. And Chromium is just that quick finisher if you can get ahead. So I really like it. It may be incorrect to play the Chromium, but I like the card, always have, and probably always will. So first things first, one Syncopate. The Syncopate's really good, just as a one of, it could probably be replaced. For some other things, you could play some Moment of Craving in its place, or play things like the, this could have easily been the fourth Chemister's Insight instead of a Syncopate, playing it down there. But having the one extra counter is pretty good, and exiling it so the Kaya gets a little bit extra value can be pretty good as well. So we have two Negate, which is just good. I feel in the format right now, Negate in the main board is perfectly fine. I think it's better than, say, Spell Pierce, where draw it late game, you can just hold it, and sometimes you do get value off of it. If you don't need it that late in the game, you still do just have the Negate to jumpstart the Chemister's Insight. So for this deck, Search for Viscanta is fairly relevant. Helps you find the pieces that you need. If you watch the videos from me playing at F&M, you'll see that I do whiff on finding the pieces that I want to find. Not necessarily that I don't take anything, but just the fact that I may have been looking for an Absorb or a removal spell, like a Mortify or a Kaya's Wrath, and did not find that. Next is the Cast Down, which is, aside from Moment of Craving, I think is the only thing that fits into this spot. It kind of comes out against other Esper decks, I feel, because either they're bringing in the Thief of Sanity or they're bringing in things like Lyra. And having the Cast Down, you only hit two, or one half of the creatures that they're bringing in. And if you're playing a play set of Thieves, I guess it's fine, but there's also a bunch of Wraths in the deck still. So next is a staple, I think, for any blue-black deck. It's just great. Thought Erasure, allowing you to see what's in their hand and take any card that's not a land, is great. Just you have to remember that Nullhide Pharax, yeah, that thing goes on the battlefield if you take it. So the extra ability, though, to be able to surveil and push a land or maybe even a Chemister's Insight or something that you don't need right to the bin is pretty good. So next is one of two Wrath effects, if you can call them Wraths, in the meta that we have at our store. Cry the Carnarium's pretty good. Exiling for Kaya is great, but then the fact that it acts as a board wipe most of the time for us may not be true for a lot of other places if you're expecting somebody to be playing more mid-range decks. So next, Absorb. So as a 4-of, obviously, the life gain plays a big part in the aggro-heavy meta that we have right now. Things may change a little bit as War of the Spark comes out, but time will tell, and we'll see. I think Absorb will still be really good at that point. Getting just some extra value off of Counterspell is always good also. So next is Kaya, which is a workhorse, I feel, in this deck. You're able to play against things that you wouldn't necessarily get very far with. So aggro decks right now prey on the fact that by turns 4 and 5 they can have lethal or very close to lethal, and the Kaya actually just allows you to enter the battlefield, gain a little bit of life, or soak up some damage when they have to attack it. There was a point where having the Kaya had to be answered when I played at FNM by a tokens player, and I could have potentially, we'd have had to play it through to see, but could have potentially won on a Teferi mill loop with an emblem. The only issue with that was that we had 3 or 4 minutes left in the round, and he still had a third of his deck left, so we never would have made it through all the draws. And that was game 1, so it was very interesting. But next we have Mortify. I love this card right now, giving you the ability to just pick off a creature or an enchantment. So Search for Escanta is a pretty big one, so if you're playing a mirror, that search is going to go by the wayside when you play your Mortify. Conclave Tribunal is one for anything that can convoke it out, so your mono white or your green white lists, being able to just save your stuff or bring it back. You can also get a little tricky in combat if they happen to, say, exile a Lyra post sideboard, whatever you have going on there. So I would probably like to have this as a Mortify, just not sure what I would cut. Potentially the Syncopate. Next is Chemist's Insight. Not much needs to be said. Everybody knows what that one is. The draw 2 and then draw 2 again when you have nothing going on is really good. So Vraska's Contempt, the high-end individual card, like exiling is really good. Gaining the 2 life. In the mirror, you have to hit the Vraska's Contempt. Probably would like to play one more. Just again, there's so few spaces to make cuts. It could be possible that the third Vraska's Contempt goes into the sideboard, just not knowing. Bring it in against, say, other control decks who play, Teferi and Kaya. Although they may pull them out and go to a more creature heavy package. So another staple for an Esper deck is the Kaya's Wrath. The 2 white 2 black mana cost is not hard with the mana base. The mana base is pretty straightforward, playing 4 of every duel in the format right now, aside from the tap lands. So it's really good, just being able to get you to clear the board multiple times. So it's nice, and you don't even have to worry about gaining any life on the backswing if need be. So, and then what is probably the win con, the most often win con of the Teferi, people scooping to it, or just the fact that you have that lockout and you're going to be able to win by milling them out. If an opponent sees it, they'll often concede to it. Card's just great. Not much to need to be said about here. I think everybody knows what this is. So onto the land base. It's like I said, pretty straightforward. We have 1 island and 1 swamp, and then after that, it's just 4 of every dual land you have: 4 Glacial Fortress and 4 Hallowed Fountains, 4 Godless Shrine and 4 Isolated Chapel, and then 4 Drowned Catacomb and 4 Watery Grave. Like I said, it's fairly easy to cast anything, no matter what it is. It's just remembering how often or which lands you need to play, and then getting to 2 of every color as soon as possible is pretty key. Excuse me. In the sideboard, there was, like I said, I made 1 change to his list. Our meta is fairly different, so I probably would have changed a couple of things. Now knowing this, probably played some number of Deputy Detention, so that card is really good, especially in our meta. So, but we start off with 3 Duress. I feel like Duress is pretty standard in any black style deck right now. We have the 3rd Negate, which could easily be deputy detention. I think 2 right now is more than enough. With 2 Moment of Craving, just a little bit of extra life gain, and then being able to pick off some of the smaller creatures that maybe pose a problem. So 3 Thief of Sanity, and then 3 Hostage Taker. Hostage Taker is really good, being able to take an opponent's Thief of Sanity, or say an opponent's an opponent's Lyra, which actually happened to me multiple times in I believe the same game. So it's a really good card. So, and I think people have forgot about it being out there. So next is Lyra, something that I feel maybe as a one of should be in the main deck. Lyra's really good, and just being able to have the lifelink and being able to win things in combat. So that gives you another way to protect your planeswalkers. So, and then there comes a point where you maybe need to deal just 1 or 2 extra points of damage. So, and then last but not least is Chromium. The card's, I think, insane. The fact that it's a 7/7 flyer with flash that can't be countered. So, in a control mirror where your opponent on their turn decides to pass, you can flash in a 7 mana card that can just turn the tide. It's super, super good. So, but that's the list that I played. I will probably be playing it again this coming Friday night at F&M, seeing how it is the F&M before pre-release. So I may make a couple of changes here that I had talked about, dropping this Syncopate, potentially adding a Lyra to the main board, changing a couple of other things around, changing the side. But for the most part, it's a pretty standard Esper control list. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you will continue to watch and check out the Liberty Coins MTG page for all the games that we post every week. And everybody enjoy War of the Spark pre-releases if you're going. Have a good time.